So there exists a very real, singular, and yet totally undefinable moment in time in which food transforms in our minds. Food transforms from looking like something that we really, really want to eat. You know, something that we think, oh, this is delicious. I want to put this in my mouth and mash it up into little bits and pieces and like roll it around for a while, and then I want to swallow it, where it will literally become part of me. There's a moment at which food transforms from being that to being garbage. Of course, food doesn't actually spoil like that, right? It goes on a continuous journey from being something that's good to eat and being something that could kill you, right? Spoilage is a very, very gradual physical, chemical, biological process, and there's no one moment at which food becomes inedible. However, there is one moment at which we decide that food is inedible, and how you make that decision, how I make that decision about whether it's food or trash, how we make that decision is an expression of much deeper and very, very important aspects of our fundamental personality and our belief system. So this is a study out of Denmark. It's from 2015, When It Stops Being Food. And this is qualitative research, meaning it's basically just a whole bunch of interviews. So, take it for what it's worth. But they found a pattern, these researchers did, when they asked people about how they decide what they should eat and what they should throw away. And it basically boils down to sort of two personality archetypes. And of course, no particular person is all one or the other. You got the more altruistic people and the more hedonistic people. The hedonistic people are concerned with their own pleasure and gratification. The altruistic people are more concerned with the well-being of others and the community, or at least that's what they say to themselves. The proportionally more hedonistic people take a look at the piece of grocery store cake that has been stuck at the back of the refrigerator for a month, and they think to themselves, ew, that's gross. I don't want to eat that. I don't like that. So I'm just going to throw it away. Everything's going to be fine. Bye. And the more altruistic people think to themselves, I don't want to eat this. It's kind of old, kind of gross, but gosh, think of all of the labor and the planetary resources that went into creating this. I really ought to eat it. I mean, yeah, it's old, but it looks fine. Smells fine. Smells like cake. I don't know. The hedonistic person might actually feel bad about it too, but they're more likely to think to themselves, oh, I spent $3.99 on this slice of cake, and it would be a shame for me to put my hard-earned labor into the trash. So maybe I should eat it? And the altruistic person is also not an idiot, and they can think to themselves, this might be a really, really unpleasant experience eating this, and it might even make me sick. So what should I do? I need more information to help me make this decision. The more altruistic people tend to use their skills of internalization to decide whether the cake is still good enough to eat. Like if I'm more altruistic proportionally, I might open it up and smell it and think, boy, that still just seems like chocolate cake. I mean, it's not surprising. It's like chemical cake out of a box, right? Probably. And these things last a long time. So maybe I should just get over myself and eat it. I mean, I'm using my internal skills of perception and deduction to try to make a judgment about what I should do here. In contrast, the more hedonistic people, the people who are more concerned with their own well-being and pleasure than they are with community well-being, relatively speaking, they tend to turn to their skills of objectification to decide whether the cake is good enough to eat because they spent their good money on it, or if they'd still rather throw it in the trash even though they spent good money on it. And objectification in this context means looking at the object that is the cake and reading the sell-by date, which is 3 weeks ago. This is a really, really old slice of cake. It got shoved behind something else and then I forgot that it was there. So the more hedonistic personality type whom these Danish researchers encountered, they were more likely to look at the date and then to defer to authority. They didn't care so much about how sell-by dates are calculated or what motives are behind them. They're more inclined to kind of just say, well, somebody says this is too old to eat. The authority figure tells me this is too old to eat. Therefore, I'm going to defer to authority and throw it out. But if you think these two kinds of personality types are fundamentally different, just people who would never get along, wait to hear the next part. Boy, I will say my skin looks very nice under this soft refrigerator light. It must be because of Geology, sponsor of this video. As you can imagine, I'm rather clueless about skincare, but my wife assures me that it's important and encourages me to get a routine. I don't know if I should take that personally. I went to Geology's website and I took their 60-second quiz, told them about my skin issues, and I don't get a lot of acne on my face anymore, but I am getting older and I get acne on my body, so they sent me this customized, personalized, dermatologist-grade routine that I use for the body wash for my body, and then I use the face products for my face here. I really appreciate that the packages tell me what to do. So this is step number 1, it says on the package, and it's just the everyday face wash. Use this to clean things off. Then the eye cream. I really like the sense of these products. It's kind of a man at the seaside. This is over time gonna keep the skin under my eyes tighter, keep it from sagging so bad. Then it's time for the night cream, which has retinol, which is anti-aging, and generally shouldn't be used during the day, so that's why it's in the night cream. And also the night cream does not have sunscreen in it, which the day cream does, and I really appreciate that, because more than my appearance, I'm really just kind of want to make sure that my skin, this major organ of my body, is, healthy. Alrighty, I think I'm ready for bed. Are you ready to save some money? Take 70% off your personalized skincare trial set and get up to an additional 50% off add-ons when added to the trial. You're getting over $49 in products for just the cost of shipping. Check out my link in the description. Thank you, Geology. Regardless of their ideology or their underlying personality type, everyone interviewed by these Danish researchers said that they use the same exact strategy to kind of manage the emotional labor of saying goodbye, right? Of saying, this money that I spent is just going to go in the trash, or all of this collective human endeavor is going to go in the trash. Regardless of how you look at it, we all employ the same strategy to kind of ease the burn, which is to take the cake and put it back in the fridge and leave it there for a while until it's really, really old, and then we can really, really morally justify to ourselves throwing it away. Because gosh, at this point, it's not 3 weeks old, it's 3 months old. You have to be crazy to eat that. Procrastination. It is the great uniter. Brings us all together, doesn't it? Now, hedonism is a character trait that we see across all different kinds of people. However, altruism is one that generally is more frequently observed in a certain kind of person. Liberal people tend to score more highly on altruistic personality scales than conservative people do. And those are terms, liberal and conservative, that get used very differently by different people, and especially across history. And in any context, they deserve to be interrogated, except for this context, because this is a video about food, and I only want to talk about politics in as much as I have to in order to communicate the main thrust of the observations that I'm making. So, I will just tell you that right now I am using liberal and conservative probably in the same basic way that you do, the dominant colloquial usage of those terms, and we're just going to leave it there. So, liberal people, self-identified liberal people, and also people who you can identify through asking them questions, specific questions about their beliefs and positions. And people who score more liberal also tend to score more altruistic, meaning that they tend to care more about the whole community, or at least they say they do. And you recall it was the more altruistic people who tended to report a feeling of duty to eat old food, a sense of respect for the food and what it represents. And something else we know from different research, lots of different research, is that conservative people tend to have slightly stronger disgust responses than liberal people do. Liberal people are not as easily grossed out as conservatives tend to be. And they study this lots of different ways, usually by showing people pictures of things or videos of things, and then you can ask people how they felt about what they saw, or you can track their eye movements and their pulse to kind of judge physiological stress responses. And what you find is that conservatives tend to just be a little bit more stressed out or want to avert their eyes away from gross things than liberal people do. It's not a huge difference. It's a relatively minor difference, but it is a statistically significant difference in a lot of different studies that have been done through the years. And so from putting these multiple pieces of research together in my mind, I am starting to wonder whether one kind of person, one particular political ideology, is more likely to eat food that is a little bit old but still good. And that's something that I have not seen directly examined in the literature, and somebody ought to do that because it's important, because food waste is a major thing that has to be dealt with through public policy. We're throwing away tons of money and tons of planetary resources. Between 30 and 40% of all food is wasted, most of that at the consumer level, and that's bad. And so it's better if we understand how we all process information about food spoilage in our minds, and we might do that differently depending on who we are and where we came from, right? I mean, food companies are already aware of how ideology affects consumption. It's something that they study for the purposes of marketing, right? And here's a piece of research out of France that's meant to help food companies understand how to better market to conservative versus liberal people, food specifically. Benjamin Buff. I wonder if he's jacked. Anyway, what Benjamin thought to do was to ask people to read a product promotional message, one that was a health message. Our hot dogs are 100% beef, raised without antibiotics, and made with no artificial ingredients and no preservatives. That is the claim that they asked these sort of consumer stand-ins to read. And then the study subjects were instructed to read some other language, some other verbiage from this fictional hot dog company. Some of the people got language that was like, our hot dog company is the best because we really care about our community and we invest our profits back into charities and stuff like that. And then other people were asked to read accompanying corporate verbiage that said, our company stands for tradition and making hot dogs the old-fashioned way, the way they're supposed to be made for God and country. As you can imagine, the liberal consumers who were studied were a bit turned off by all of that God and country and tradition language. And when they read it, they were more likely to say that hot dogs are bad for you, even though these hot dogs are raised without antibiotics or whatever. They were more skeptical of the health claim when it was accompanied by sort of an appeal to conservative values. And then the flip side was also true of the conservatives. They were more likely to think dimly of the health benefits of hot dogs if they were accompanied by sort of liberal appealing language about community and charity and all that kind of stuff. Though the difference was not as big with the conservatives as it was with the liberals. The conservatives tend to like hot dogs really no matter who's selling them. Here's another marketing study. This one's led by a Dutch scholar, and what they did was they showed people pictures of like imperfect produce, fruits and vegetables that are perfectly edible but they grew in a funny shape. The conservative consumers were noticeably less likely to go for the imperfect fruits and veg. The liberals were perfectly fine with either kind of fruit or veg. But again, these are small differences, statistically significant differences, but they're not huge, and so individual results may vary when you encounter actual humans with normal, complex human opinions out there in the wild. None of us is all one thing or the other, right? And this is why I want to make a little statement up on my soapbox before I show you the last study that I want to show you today, and that is my personal belief about like left-right political ideology is that even though I obviously consider myself camp left, I don't really think that's a good way to kind of consider most human beings. Like, I don't think that that's really the axis around which our world revolves. Do you revolve around an axis? No. Yes, you revolve around an axis, you tilt on a fulcrum, right? That's not really the fulcrum on which our world really goes back and forth, although it may kind of feel like that during moments of particular political turmoil. Personally, I think I take kind of a more Eastern philosophical view of the situation, which is that all people contain all sides of every coin, and it's just about trying to keep those forces in balance with each other for the times and the place that you're living in, right? All of us need to have a voice inside ourselves that says, do it, do it, do it. It'd be awesome. Do it. And we need a voice inside ourselves that says, maybe don't do it, right? And in our communities, we need human beings who will stand up and say, yeah, let's use the awesome power of government to try to fix this social injustice. And we need people in our society who will stand up and they'll say, maybe let's not do that, because every time we try to do that, our actions have a whole bunch of unintended consequences, and we tend to sort of make things worse than they were before, and it costs a lot of money, and we got to think about that too, and so maybe let's not. These are two valuable points of view, in my humble opinion. So I'm not trying to lecture you about your ideology, I'm just trying to show you how your ideology might correlate with the way that you eat based upon research. And here's a study from a couple of years ago out of the Indiana University Business School. Remember, this is all really about business. And what they did was they offered people food, lots more food than they would be able to eat. And what these researchers found was that the liberal people who got offered the meal tended to overeat or say that they wanted to overeat because they had this instinct to respect the food and respect the labor and the environmental resources that went into it. And so think of the starving children in Africa, basically. That's what our parents used to say to us a generation ago. And they would just eat the food. Even if they didn't want it, even if it was more food than would be healthy for them, they would eat it anyway. Whereas the conservative people in the study group tended to say, no, I'm going to eat as much as I'm going to eat. And if the rest goes in the trash, then that's just the way it is, because I need to be responsible for myself and and my health and my body, and that involves not eating too much. Again, not huge differences between different groups of people, but, noticeable and meaningful differences. And I like to think that if I was tested this way, I would probably be the one who thought about the starving children in Africa, and then I would want to shovel the food down just to show the food respect. But that's a dumb thing to do because overeating is a kind of food waste. Unless you're going to eat way less in subsequent meals in order to have it all balance out. But I'm not going to do that, right? I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and I will have this gigantic, extra big meal in my belly that was not eaten by starving children in Africa. It was eaten by me, and it made me fatter, so I'm probably going to get in my gas-guzzling SUV and drive it to the gym and stand on a treadmill for an hour to try to work it off and think about the environmental cost of that. Like, that's freaking dumb. This is what I mean by saying it's good to have both voices on both shoulders and to listen to them, and the trick is keeping them in balance. Yeah, I think that's the end of the video. That's a good place to end it, right? Yeah.